Let's have a word of prayer, please. Master God, we thank you and praise you for your love and kindness. Thank you for grace and mercy. Thank you, God, for the privilege and the honor of serving you. You've allowed us to be your people, dear God. For this, we're grateful. As we humble ourselves in your presence, we pray that you would speak to us. Speak to our hearts and our minds, dear God. Draw us close that we might feel your heartbeat. Understand what you require of us, dear God, and be faithful in living our lives to give you glory. We thank you, God, for being our God. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Tonight we're still talking about loving God and what that looks like. Can anybody tell what's branding? If you talked about something, you say you had to work on your brand. What does that mean? What's branding? A company works on its brand. A person works on their brand.
Something that identifies you uniquely.
Something to identify you uniquely. It's a way of communicating to others who you are. It represents you. Okay. Nike is a brand. And what's the Nike symbol? Swoosh. It's a swoosh. So you won't really confuse Nike, say, with Tommy Hilfiger. Right. Because the two brands are different, and you can tell we used to call them, you have a symbol or a logo. So a lot of people, the brand, their name becomes their brand. Michael Jordan, that his name is a brand. Michael Jackson's name a brand. Even Donald Trump names a brand. You work on the branding by identifying. And when you see that swish for Nike, right? What do you think? What comes to mind when you see that? Sneakers. I can't hear you, baby. Sweatsuits. Socks.
Or their slogan.
Huh?
Or their slogan, I guess, do it.
Their slogan, just do it.
Basketball.
You start thinking basketball. No one thinks cupcakes.
No.
No one thinks ice cream. No one thinks fast cars. You think around things with athletics, some kind of activity, some sports. You're dealing with socks or rackets, tennis rackets or headbands, something to do with athletics. Just do it. Just get it done. Just get out there, right? Now, if you think of Goodwill, what do you think? Secondhand.
Homeless people.
The homeless people. Charity. I can't hear you. Clothing. Mm-hmm. Some people will say bargains, fines, days, adventure, because you get to go there and go hunting, finding stuff, hidden treasure. You might think of opportunity for those who are otherwise gifted and talented. So you may think different things. Why? Because the logo make you think that the brand make you think those things, right? Mm-hmm. The problem is that when the world look at God's brand, they're not sure what to think.
Ooh, they're confused.
You see, because we are his brand. Mm-hmm. We're God's swish. We're God's Nike swish. We're God's Audi circles. We're God's representatives. We're his brand. We're the Christians. We're supposed to represent him in this world. Now, when you look at Nike, you don't think bakery. You look at Goodwill, you don't think Macy's. Mm-hmm. It's in the same industry, right? But at two different ends of the spectrum. So you don't, even though it's the same industry, you don't look at Goodwill and say, Lord and Taylor. Now you might be happy if you go in Goodwill and find a Lord and Taylor item, right? But you won't pay Lord and Taylor price in Goodwill even if it's a brand new Lord and Taylor item. Mm-hmm. Why? If it's brand new, they just took it off the rack at Lord and Taylor's and hung it on the rack at Goodwill, you would not pay the same price in Goodwill that you would pay in Lord and Taylor. Right. Why?
You said it's Goodwill.
Because it says Goodwill.
That's right.
It's the same product, the same thing, but because where it's at, you're going to pay something different.
Right.
So even though we talk Christ, we talk Bible, even though we say we go to church, if the world see us in the wrong place, they ain't going to believe us.
Come on.
See, we can be talking Jesus in the club, they ain't going to believe us. Because we're like that Lord and Taylor shirt hanging in Goodwill. We're misrepresenting the brand. We're misrepresenting Christ. So what we've been talking about this year and what we're talking about today is getting the brand right. Coming to understand that it's our job to represent the Lord Jesus Christ in a way to give him glory. Does your life tell the truth on God? Does my life tell the truth on God? If people read my life, they observe my life, am I telling the truth on God? When they encounter me, are they encountering a clear picture of who God is? That's the focus. That's what we're talking about. We're still looking at the Good Samaritan, but the last sermon, last time I was Sunday, I was preaching Sunday before last. We talked about how you're living. We were looking at what's going on in your life. How are you living? Right. So we're still in Luke chapter 10, verse 30 through 37. We've read it many times, but one more time just for the record. Jesus replied, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he fell among robbers who stripped him and beat him, departing, leaving him half dead. But by chance, a priest was going down that road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. So likewise a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he journeyed, came to where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion. He went to him and bound up his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he set him on his own animal and brought him to an inn and took care of him. And the next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper, saying, take care of him, and whatever more you spend, I will repay you when I come back. Which of these 3 do you think proved to be a neighbor to the man who fell among robbers? He said, the one who showed him mercy. And Jesus said to him, you go and do likewise. So what we have here, again, we're looking at how to live. We're talking about dealing with God's brand. We are the representative of God in this world. No one confuses Nike for Aramis cologne, and no one confuses, Goodwill for Mercedes-Benz, because the brand, they've done a good enough job branding them and carving out their image that we know who they are by their symbols. We can hear phrases and know who they are and what they're about. The problem is the world look at Christians, they're not sure what we're about. They don't know if we're about prosperity or holiness. They don't know if we're about forgiveness or self-promotion. They don't know if we're just in this thing for heaven or if we really love Jesus. They don't know if we're just trying to escape the fire. They don't know, because we don't necessarily brand well. We push our own more than we do God. One image of that, who's Michael Jordan? You guys know Michael Jordan? All right. You know his symbol? What's the symbol? What's the image of Michael Jordan on his product? The jump man, right? But Michael Jordan didn't always start out as a jump man.
That's right.
Michael Jordan started out as Nike Jordan.
Right.
He was a part of Jordan, right, of Nike. But he got so big, grew so large, that he was able to negotiate where he became his own entity. Even though Nike produced him and Nike ran the product, it was his own image. So he went from the swish to the jump man.
Right.
He rebranded himself in a way away, distancing himself a little bit from the one who started him and provide for him.
Right.
Too many times, that's what we do, Christians.
That's true.
We brand ourselves away from God.
Glory.
We stop representing the one who brought us out and got us over and made a way for us, and we start pushing our own product. We start pushing how holy we are, or how good we got it, or what we're going to get, or what makes us comfortable and what we want. We start branding ourselves as the holy ones. And in our story, the priest and the Levite had a brand. But their brand didn't allow them to do the work of the Father. So we're looking at this thing, and we're saying, how are you living? Now, the world has when I say the world, scholars and those who want to discredit God, they look around and they say, if God is so good, if God is so loving, explain to me how people are dying, what happened to the baby, explain to me the pain and the suffering.
Right.
How can a loving God let so much pain and suffering happen and just let if God knew that this boy was going to grow up and kill all them people, why did God ever let him get born if God can do everything? Why didn't he just stop it? What's God's answer to pain and suffering in the world?
Right.
Sometimes we start answering those questions trying to look at God's characteristics. Well, God is love, and God deals with free will, and we all have free will. And if God shut down the free will of the evil, he has to shut down the free will of the good, because all humanity's free will is under God's divine provision and God's divine providence, which is true. But there's another aspect to the answer that we seldom give. And that is, God's church is God's response to evil. We're God's response to evil and pain in the world. When we see suffering and we see pain, God empowers us to represent him in the midst of that situation. And too many times, we miss the opportunity to represent God when people need him most. When the priest and the Levite was walking by the man in the road, they had opportunity to represent the God that they served.
Yeah.
But they didn't. And so many times we allow the situation, how we live, to push us through beyond and make us cross the street, so we don't really represent God the way he intended us to. In pagan temples, what do you find?
Idols.
What's an idol? Something they worship.
A representative of their God.
A representative
Of their God.
of the God
That they serve.
So again, follow me here. This is a little technical. Follow me here. They stole that from our divine Father.
Okay.
You see, God is God.
Right.
This world, his creation, is his temple. It's his dwelling. It's where he lives. We are his image.
Okay.
We would be, not that we are to be worshipped.
Right.
We are to represent God in his creation.
Right.
We're put here to represent God. And what the world did, they distorted it. They said the sons of God, and they created an image of the sun god and put in a temple to say, now worship that. Wrong. We are the image of God who's in the dwelling place of God for the purpose of worshiping God.
All right.
That's why the priest went into the temple.
Right.
The priest went to God to worship God as a representative of God. That's what we do. We're supposed to be God's representative that go before God to worship him. We worship him. And we worship and live out his will among people so they can do what? That they too can see the good works of the Father and see our good works and glorify our Father in heaven. That's what we do. But so many times we miss it. We miss that opportunity. And the world don't pull punches. The world attacked to destroy God's humanity. that man laying in the road was an attack not just on that man, but on humanity. It was an attack on God who loved him enough to create him. You with me? So when we walk by those who have been attacked, we are saying somehow, some way that that person is less than or other than. And that's not true. How many times have you or I been in situations where all we needed was somebody to smile, to touch, to help? Someone just to tell us it's going to be all right.
Yes.
But what did everybody didn't want to get involved, cross the street, didn't want to take the time. They left us in the midst of a problem that all we wanted to know is that God loved us.
Yes.
That's all we want. All we wanted to know is that God will make a way for us. But they crossed the street and left us there in the midst of our mess. And so many times we're the ones that either the Samaritan in the road or the one guilty of crossing the street because we don't want to get involved. But when humanity is attacked by evil, evil's attacking God. You see, evil don't care enough about us to attack us.
Yes.
Evil simply attack us in humanity because God loves us so much. And when evil can attack and break us and fracture us, then it deals a blow to God. How many times have pain snatched you out of church? How many times have pain, disappointment, sorrow, difficulties in life made you feel like you didn't want to go to church? How many times have a sin, a mistake, let's not call a sin a mistake, because usually sin is not a mistake. Let's call sin. We committed a sin. We did something against God, and then we get so embarrassed we won't come back to church.
Right.
Why? You think that's God? I mean, that's like getting hit by a car and refusing to go to the hospital. That's like having your leg broken and saying, no, don't fix it. It's I get so embarrassed I won't go get healed. I get so broke that I won't let nobody help me. But see, that happens because evil attacks to destroy. And it's trying to destroy our relationship, the hope that we can have in God. Most atheists are atheists because they have serious church hurt.
Amen.
Somebody in the church has disappointed them, hurt them, turned their backs on them. Somebody in the church has proved no one took the time to teach them the truth. I was listening to a guy the other day, and it takes more faith to believe what he was talking about than trusting in God. This guy was saying that he believed that the world was created from nothing, but nothing was the agent that created it. That outside time and space there is nothing, but nothing created it. Nothing acted with nothing and became something. And he said, we got faith. That's crazy. But what it is, he is so turned off by church, Christians, and being hurt that he's willing to accept anything other than the truth of God, because how can God be true and all of this is happening? That's because we misplaced the brand. We're not living out what we've been so consumed in the West with Christianity that promotes the self that we forgot about the Christianity that promotes God.
Hallelujah.
We got to get back to the place where our faith promotes Jesus.
Hallelujah.
That's what we have to go for, because the truth is right now, the church is living like the priest and the Levite. We're not providing an adequate response to evil, pain, and suffering in the world.
Jesus.
Most of us see evil and we become hardened to it. We don't even take the time to cry over the abused or pray for the abuser.
Come on, Pastor.
We don't take the time. Most of us don't, and it's not because we're evil or hard-hearted. It's just our focus has been turned away from God, and it takes a God nature to put others before you. If we don't have a God-centered nature, it's natural to seek out what is best for self first. That's just how we're bred. That's what it is. It's natural for me to make sure that I'm taken care of, my family's taken care of, and I got enough for next week before I look to help anybody. But if I have this God nature that's dwelling inside of me, God just might have me feed somebody and trust him for my own bread. So, and I'm not saying you give your stuff away, but I am saying that we have to put God back on the throne. Yes. We have to start serving God in a way where he is truly, we say it, but we don't live it. We have to, where he is truly the owner of everything he's given us. He is the owner of everything that we have under our name. He owns our health. He owns my last breath, and he owns my next breath. Jesus. He owns my house. He owns my money. He got charge over my kids. Everything about me belongs to God, and it is at his disposal. We say it, but we don't really get there. Amen. So we have to come to a place where we're moving in that direction, where God's in charge. Because if we don't, we're the priest and we're the Levite. We're going to pass on the other side. Now, look, you know the text where it says, if you hold, Jesus said, if they hold their peace, who gonna cry out? Rocks. The rocks are going to cry out. And then somebody wrote a song, I don't want those little rock crying out for me. All right. Well, maybe a rock ain't that piece of granite out there. Maybe the rock is that fella smoking rock on the corner. Maybe he's the rock that's going to cry out in our place. And I got Bible to prove it up. Matter of fact, to prove it, we've been dealing with it. Maybe the Samaritan was the rock that cried out for the priest and the Levite. Just maybe it was the Samaritan that showed up and did what the church people wouldn't do. The Samaritan was of the wrong pedigree. He was of the wrong bloodline. He came from the wrong place to be used by God. He said Jerusalem wasn't the place to worship. We got to go to Shechem. We got to go worship on Mount Zaire or wherever it's called. We got to go worship there. We can't worship here. You remember the lady at the well, woman at the well, right? We can't worship here. That's what he said. You can't worship in Jerusalem. He was of the wrong pedigree, the wrong place, the wrong ideology. Even though he considered himself to be a Yahweh worshiper, he may even consider himself to have been Jewish. He could have considered himself that. But the Jews in Jerusalem did not, because there was a long running rift, wrong pedigree, coming from the wrong place, wrong theological focus, wrong ideology. He was the wrong person of the three for God to use. Yet God used him. So we come talk about, I'm wrong. I ain't got enough. I don't know enough. I come from the wrong place. I don't talk good enough. My life, I don't have enough. We are dead wrong for God to use. But yet God will use us. He will use you if you make yourself available. Hallelujah. Wrong or not, hallelujah. God will use you. God did not require this man to stop being a Samaritan. True. Did not require this man to give up and openly confess that Jerusalem is the place to worship before he could be used. God didn't fix everything broken about this Samaritan before he used him. Yes. Why do we require more of ourselves than God required of us? We say, I got to be fixed before God can use me. God didn't say that. God said, be available, not be whole. You with me? Be available, not whole. Because none of us are all the way fixed. Hallelujah. Every one of us got cracks and bumps and holes and lumps. We all grow. Every one of us see through a glass darkly. Everyone. So we can't sit back and wait until we get it all together. All that is a backdoor excuse to say I'm scared. That's all it is. I'm scared. I don't want to go, and I ain't got it together yet. That's just the way to say no. But the sign that says you got to use the back door, but they took that down a long time ago. You ain't got to use the back door no more. Come on through and say, God, use me now.
Yes.
I'm scared. I don't know which way to go.
Yes.
This is a dangerous road. I didn't think I was the right person. I'm of the wrong pedigree. I don't come from the right place. I don't have the right upbringing. I don't know enough Bible. Nobody took me to Sunday school. God, I don't know, and I don't have. And God, I don't understand. But if you'll use me, I'm available.
Hallelujah.
I'm going to stop here at this situation long enough for you to use me, if you will.
Hallelujah.
See, that's where we go. Stop telling God what he can't do because who you are. God, you can't use me because I'm messed up. God, you can't use me because I ain't got enough. Who's in charge in that conversation? We got to come to the place with God, because you are God. You can use me. If God can give water out of a rock, he can bring gospel out of you.
Hallelujah. You better go ahead, Pastor.
He can do it. So we just have to say, okay, Lord, here I am.
Yes.
And he's able to make that happen. Now, because he's just able to do it.
Right.
The Samaritan also didn't have something else, y'all. He didn't have the right pedigree, he didn't come from the right place. He didn't have the right titles. We don't know what he was. We don't know why he was on that road. Maybe he went to Jerusalem. He was leaving Jerusalem. Maybe he was a peddler. Maybe he knew that it was a special day and Jerusalem was there. He went there to sell his wares. Maybe he went there to take, he was a traveling marketeer. He went there to market. We don't know. We don't know why he was there. Maybe he lived in Jericho and he was on his way home, had just left his girlfriend's house. We don't know. We don't know why he was on the road. But what we do know is that he wasn't a priest and he wasn't a Levite. And for some reason, Jesus didn't even bother to tell us his state and status in life. See, we get that one was a priest and one was a Levite. We know what they did for a living.
Right.
We know what their status was.
Right.
We know their title. It's a priest and a Levite. What we don't know is the Samaritan. We just know he was out of place. We just know that he was somebody that the Jews would not have wanted to touch them under normal circumstances. That's all we know. We don't really know anything about him. He didn't have the right title. He didn't have the right letters after his name. So what about us? So what? You don't have the right title. So what? You don't have the right letters after your name. If you submit and surrender to God, he will use you in a way that he will never use folk with the right titles. There's folk who will talk to you that won't talk to a reverend. There are people that you can minister to that will be turned off by somebody who says, I'm a deacon at a church, because they had too many drinks with the deacon down at the corner bar. So they're like, don't tell me you're a deacon. So you can talk to them and the professionals won't be able to.
Right.
So let's do what we know that God created us to do. He created us to live that way. Now, what made this man stop? You see, because we say there's nothing in Jesus' story that implies that the Samaritan knew the man in the dirt. There's if the draw of ethnicity or social cultural stuff, if that didn't stop the priest and the Levite, who from the telling of the story shared that with the man in the road, why would it stop him? So, in other words, you walking down the street and you see an African American from your neighborhood in the street that's messed up. You see him, but you don't stop. But this good old boy from Nashville, Tennessee, he's driving by on vacation. He sees him, the same guy that you walk by, and stop. something more than nationality or ethnicity made him stop. That's the scenario here. The priest and Levite looked at him and they shared all of the common things they shared with him, and they went on. This fellow who shared none of those things with him stopped. So what was it that made him stop? It wasn't a sense of obligation. See, many times we approach God and serving God not from a posture of love, but from one of obligation. I have to. Listen to the way most Christians talk about worship and Bible study and even forgiveness. They talk about it in a way that's almost like they're being forced to do it. I gotta go to church. I gotta be at church next Sunday. You know, oh Lord, what time is it? Oh, let me get up and make a home. I gotta go. Oh, I gotta help them. We don't talk about other stuff that way. We don't talk about going out to dinner after school, after work that way. We don't talk about getting to our car after the work day on Friday that way. We don't talk about like I have to, like somebody's making us do it. We do it because we see it as a privilege, an honor, something we want. When does Jesus become attractive enough so we want to go? When does Jesus become attractive enough that we want to be with him, we want to worship him, we want to praise him, we want to be in his presence? When does he have enough authority and power in our lives that we want to serve him? We want to do his will. When does it stop being, I have to, I must? And most of the time, I must because we see it as an investment. If I don't, then maybe I won't get what I need. If I don't help them, maybe I ain't going to get help. If I don't give it to them, maybe I ain't going to get what I want. So I don't even do it for love or because I must. I do it because I don't want to be shortchanged. I give to you because, you know, I want to help when it comes my time to be helped. You know, I'm going to help your child because I got children out there. And I want people to help my kids when they get in trouble. What is that? I mean, that's like Wall Street Christianity. You make an investment here because you're expecting the payoff down there. Now, yes, God blesses us, and yes, what we do, we plant seeds, all that seed time and harvest the way popular preachers are preaching it. That's just push that to the side. That's not real, because every seed don't produce fruit. But anyway. When we put the seed in the ground, when we put the seed out there, yes, God blesses it and it produces. But that's not why you're doing it. Guess what? That's not even why farmers who plant crops don't plant crops just to reap the harvest. You with me? If they did, they would just put it in their barns and let it stay there until it rot. They don't just plant the stuff for the harvest. They plant it because they see in it, I get to love my family. I get to take care of my family. I get to educate my kids. I get to build my church. I get to provide a home. Planting the crop is a way of showing love and compassion and caring for others. They don't just plant it so they can reap the harvest. So if we just plant the seed of our lives, of our efforts, of our attitudes, of our love, and we just plant the seed for that, and so that we can reap the harvest, we miss the real power of what it is we're doing for God. The real power of what we do for God is to show the world his love. The real purpose for us serving God is that the world might know his love, that his love will flow through us, and they would know how much he loves them, how much he cares for them, how much he wants for them. That don't mean we have to accept their sin and baptize it in the church to say, see, God loves you to accept you like you come. The devil is a lie. You can come like you want, but none of us come to stay like we are.
Come on.
If you say I'm gonna come to God as I am and stay like I came, then you really ain't coming to God. You just come to validate your sin. every one of us need to have to understand I'm coming to God as I am for the purpose. He can make me into what he wants me to be. But he can transform me into who he wants me to be.
Hallelujah.
That's what we do, y'all. And that's what we're after. And that's why we can see that God did something special with this Samaritan. Because if you hear Jesus's parable, he's talking to the scribe, and he asked the scribe the question, which one of these was the neighbor, right? It wasn't rhetorical, completely rhetorical, because Jesus expected him to answer.
Mm-hmm.
However, it was rhetorical in nature because Jesus knew the answer. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So I know you know the answer, but I'm going to drop it and make you say it.
Mm.
You say what you already know. In other words, prove to yourself that you already know what you're asking me. Right? You already know. And a lot of times we do the same thing with God. We know what God expects. God, do I really have to forgive him? What kind of question is that? God, do I really have to love him? God, do I really have to help him? Look, you know the answer to those questions.
Jesus.
God, I messed up and I spent too much and my light bill's due. Can I take my tithes and pay my light bill? You know the answer. But we want to ask God, hoping that God will change his mind just for us this time.
Yes.
Or at least leave us a loophole where we can misinterpret what he said. But instead of God leaving us a loophole so we can misinterpret, he make us answer what we already know. But what does it say?
True. What is true?
But see, because he's a scribe. Now, we don't know if he was a Pharisee, a Sadducee. We don't know what kind of scribe he was. All we know is he's a scribe. He was a lawyer. He was an attorney. He could have been a prosecuting attorney, a defense attorney. He could have been a corporate attorney. All we know is he was a scribe. He worked with the text.
Yes.
It was his job to read the Bible and interpret it for the preacher to preach. He was the seminarian professor whose job it was to do text criticism, taking Hebrew and turn it into English so that the preacher can pick it up and preach sermons.
Preach, Pastor.
That's what the scribe was. That's what the scribe was. That's what he did.
Yeah.
He interpreted the text. So when Jesus says, what's it say? You know. Well, he knew. Because his job was to interpret the text. So when Jesus wasn't saying nothing like, getting all smart and flip. No, Jesus said, look, you're a scribe.
Right.
You know what it says. And that's why he gets to say, well, this is what it says, Jesus. And Jesus says, you're right, now go do it. Right? So Jesus knew that he knew. But yet he had to convince him of how he should treat his neighbor. That says to you and me that just knowing is not enough. It wasn't a question of knowledge. It wasn't a question of, oh, I know. And when people don't want to do something, and it's halfway through you're explaining to them, first thing they say, oh, I know. And then they start doing what? Give you a reason why what you're saying don't fit, or justifying why they ain't doing it. Or oh, I know, I just ain't ready yet. But the issue is not knowing. It's not if you know or not. It's not if you're able to recite or not. Because how do you know that there is some level of interpretation where you don't have to have understanding?
Make it plain, Pastor.
Right.
You see, if all I'm doing, I can't do it, I only know one language. But if all I do is take Ebonics and interpret it into English so folk who don't understand Ebonics can know what this person is saying, I don't really have to understand the argument. I just have to understand the words.
Right.
I don't have to be an astrophysicist to interpret the language of an astrophysicist so that other astrophysicists
Yes.
can understand
Okay.
what he's saying. All I got to be able to do is take the words
Right.
and translate the words from one language to the next. I don't have a clue what you're talking about.
Right.
But so at some level,
Wonderful.
interpretation doesn't require understanding.
Jesus.
So just because the scribe was interpreting and knew the right answer didn't mean he understood the right answer.
Go ahead, Pastor.
And just because you can quote the right text and say, I know, don't mean you understand. There's a difference between knowledge and understanding.
Jesus.
And so when we look at this, it wasn't a knowledge issue. It could have been an issue of did he understand or not, but it probably wasn't. But it could have been, because sometimes we come, like I said, and we say those things. The problem was who and what the priest and the Levite were got in the way of who they were serving. You see, they were professionals in the kingdom of God. They were professional servants, but they forgot to serve the king. They were like the sons of Eli. The boys that their job, they were professional priests. They were supposed to take over. But they forgot to serve the king. And they started serving themselves. Let's not throw them under the bus if we're not willing to reserve a will for ourselves.
Thank you, Lord.
Because sometimes we become professional Christians.
Jesus.
We claim the rights of the kingdom,
Hallelujah.
but we forget to serve the king. We claim he hears me when I pray. He'll make a way out of no way. We claim that a promise is coming, that a new day's coming, that joy's coming in the morning. We claim all those things. He's going to provide for us. We claim those things.
Hallelujah.
While I yet pray, he's going to answer. He's going to fight my battles for me. You know, he's going to make the devil leave me alone. I plead the blood. We claim.
Thank you, Jesus.
We claim them. The rights and privilege of the kingdom we claim. Professional Christians. But we forget to serve the king.
Glory.
And as a result, we pass folk who need us, we pass them by. We cross the street and we pass them by. And the fellow who have no real claim to the kingdom is the one that stops. Jesus always tells parables like this. You know, remember the parable or the story he told of the folk who was praying and I think it was a scribe again or a Pharisee came in and was saying, Lord, I thank you I'm not like that sinner. I think, remember? And then the sinner was over there, stood afar off, wouldn't raise his head up and just said, Lord, you don't have mercy on me. Remember that story? And what did Jesus say? There is this one who is righteous, this one who is made. Why? Because he didn't forget the king. He understood that in the presence of God, I'm broken, I'm messed up. I can't come to God like I got it. I can't step up like, you know what, God, I'm thanking, look at me. No. Jesus is always saying, just like this, the Samaritan, the sinner who came to pray, the Samaritan who stopped to help. Those are the ones that Jesus validates. And in the story, he don't whitewash them. He don't clean them up. The sinner was a sinner.
All right.
The Samaritan was a Samaritan.
Yes.
He didn't say the one who used to sin is now is holy. The Samaritan that got converted and now worship in Jerusalem. He didn't clean them up. He left them there. And says, this is who they are. But I validate them. Why? Because their heart, their lives are turned toward me. We fight so hard to hide our sin that we hide ourselves from God. Lord, here I am.
Thank you, Jesus.
And you ain't got to run your stuff up the flagpole and show everybody how messed up you are. I ain't going to do that. But at least be honest between you and God. At least say, God, here I am.
Amen.
And let him clean you up. At least don't parade through the kingdom like you got it together and making other people feel bad because their stuff is messed up. And you know you got cracks everywhere.
Amen.
Don't do that.
Amen.
Because God uses us. He comes after us. So this priest and Levite. So what happened was they lacked love because they were focused on them. See, love is not, true love doesn't operate out of obligation, even though it is obligated. You with me?
Yes.
True love, my wife and I, we're obligated to each other. But the obligation that we have toward one another is not what fuels, guides, and motivates our lives together.
Amen.
If you're only held together by obligation, that is a very sterile, hard, unfulfilled life.
Right.
Because you're only doing stuff because you have to. Because you're being made to do it. There's no joy. There's no want to. There's no peace. There's no comfort in it.
Right.
So when we talk about God's love flowing through us, it's not being obligated. It is while I am obligated by his love, it is my pleasure to dispense his love.
Hallelujah.
I'm obligated because you have the authority. But even if you didn't, I would still be here.
Bless the Lord.
You see, that's where we go because there's that love and that passion that hold us. But the Levite and the priest, they just didn't have it. Their love was disempowered by their self-interest. And how many times have I missed opportunity to show others God's love because I was too invested in what I was about at the time. Too invested in where I got to go and what I need and what I'm going to do that I miss opportunity to bless others because I was so self-interested. Now I ain't saying you got to be a monk, be a hermit, you got to live in abject poverty, give everything away, or meet every night. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying that we need to be an instrument in God's hand, that when he chooses us, we're ready.
Yeah.
When he calls us to enter the game, we're there and we're ready. That we're available to him. And we don't hold anything back when it's our turn to step up and do what he's called us to do. That's what I'm saying. Now, we said that something other than knowledge stopped this Samaritan. I suggest to you, what stopped him was not the bleeding man, was not the half-dead man. That's not what stopped him. Because it didn't stop the other two. That's not what stopped him. What stopped him was the compassion, the God moment that happened inside of him.
Yeah.
What stopped him was he was obedient to an indwelling God. And that's what caused him to stop and minister. You see, if I don't have the love of God dwelling within me, if you don't have an active relationship with God that controls your mind and your thoughts, you will walk past people who are hurting and walk past opportunities to be a blessing and think nothing of it because the conviction won't be there. And you can't really have compassion if you don't have a heart that has been tenderized to the place where it can experience compassion. If you're not compassionate, you can't have compassion. You can make yourself do what you call the right thing, but you won't necessarily do it so that because you're compassionate.
Right.
You'll just do it because it's the right thing. I fed them, but like if they eat tomorrow or not, don't matter. Because I fed them today, because I did the right thing. Compassion is not just feeding them, but it's joining them. It's experiencing what they must be going through. You see, what if the man had just ministered to the fallen guy in the road? Most of us say that was good. If he stopped there and poured oil and wine on his wounds and wrapped him up and made him stand up so he was good, and you good? You good? You good? All right, listen, I'm going on my way, man. You be good. You good? Yeah, here's a quarter. Go, you good, right? See, that's how we do. We pick him up and say, you good? All right, we go with our business. But if he had done that, he wouldn't have been thinking, is the man healthy enough to even make it home? Does the man, it's late in the evening. Where's he going to sleep? How's his family going to know where he's at? You see, what compassion does, it don't just make you fix the problem, make you care for the person. That's the difference. It's not just fixing the problem. It's caring for the individual. God don't just fix our problems. He cares about us.
Hallelujah.
That's why sometimes he don't fix our problems first. Because if he fixes our problem too soon, we'll stay broken. He cares about us. He loves us to hold this in fullness. So it's not, I'm not really absolutely compassionate just because I fix problems all day. I'm not. I could just be a real good public servant. You know, cops. Some cops they write tickets, they break up fights, they keep the peace all day. But they're not very compassionate. They'll fix your problem all day. They'll help you get in your car when you get locked out. They'll put their lights on and wait till AAA come and get you if you get stuck on the side of the road. They'll help you fix your problem. But they're not very compassionate. You meet some nurses like that in the hospital. They'll come give you your shot. They'll bring you your food. They'll take care of you. They'll even change your bedpan. But they're not very compassionate. They'll fix the problem. They don't care much about you. See, being compassionate says not only will I fix your problem, I care about you. You matter. And when we deal with God and God's love flow through us, others matter. It's not just fixing their problem. They matter to us. And the Samaritan stopped, I believe, because that fellow mattered. How do I believe it? Because the Bible said he looked on him and had compassion. He looked on him and had compassion. I can remember I was riding through Newark with some preacher friends of mine. We were on our way to a minister's conference there, and God convicted me. Because as we rode by, I saw two children playing by the curb in the dirt, by the curb. I don't know what that street was. A major street in Newark, like 6 lanes across. Major street in Newark. They were playing by the curb, and I said, "Look at that! What kind of parent would let their child play in the dirt that close to it?" And I was just like starting to really go ahead a little bit on parent and what kind of parent. And God really kind of pricked my heart and convicted me, because what came to my spirit was, I'm condemning the parent, but I don't care nothing about the kids. I ain't felt nothing about the kids. I ain't felt nothing about their situation. I ain't thought about why a parent who I have no reason would think didn't love their children, wouldn't be there, wouldn't do something. I don't know what they're up against. I don't know what they're going through. I don't know what conditions they're living under. I don't know what their mind is. So I'm condemning their lifestyle and what they're doing. Don't know nothing about it. I ain't once said, y'all look, let's start something. Let's do something to help these parents, help these kids. Let's do something to get a playground. This place needs somewhere where kids can play safely. I ain't did none of that. What I did was condemn them for living the life they were living. I don't even know why they were living it. I don't know why they were laying in the dirt, beaten and in the condition they were in. But my response was to criticize them. And how many times, church, that's our response? We see the world suffering. We see what they're going through. We see pain. And instead of us coming together, instead of us representing Christ, we do We do what I did that day in that car. What kind of parent? Now, these are babies. I didn't take time to pray for them. I didn't say, God, keep them safe. I didn't say, God, don't let them move out into traffic. I didn't do any of that. I simply criticized the parent. And it didn't take much to get other folk in the car to join me in criticizing the parent. We got to do better. How are we living? This Samaritan, he stopped. He didn't just criticize the fellow for being on the road by himself. Too late at night. Oh, it wasn't night probably, but too late. So what did he do? He did something about it. So what I'm saying to us today, and I'm done. So I'm simply asking the question, is how you live. Are we professional Christians who forget to serve the King? Are we more critical than prayerful? Is our heart open so that God can use us? Are we focused on glorifying Him and rescuing others, being a blessing to others? Or are we just in this thing because we want to miss hell and enjoy the ride going to heaven? God, do we pray more that God would give us the extra $5 for the lunch we want next week? Do we pray more for that than we do for the kids who are dying, the families are going without? What caused, when you feel a sensation, I gotta pray, and I gotta pray right now? Is that usually for you or for others? How do we do that? All I'm saying, church, let's be like the Samaritan. Let's do what Jesus told that scribe. You're right. You know what to do.
Do it.
Now go do it. We're His brand. We represent Him in this world. By this shall all men know you are my disciples, that you have loved one to another. We're His brand. We represent Him in this world. We are God's Nike swish. Let's show the world what Jesus really, really looks like. Let's love folk in a way that brings glory and honor to God. All right?